Casey. So I have a second.
Second.
Move by acclamation.
Members, can we move by acclamation?
Yes.
Yes. The resolution is passed.
And it will be,
There is an extension.
you will send this to the Democratic Party for the convention, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
all of these will be sent
Thank you.
to the California Party. Okay, item number 9 has been withdrawn. Item 10, proposed policies and procedures amendments. Members, last meeting I asked a subcommittee to follow up and present to us today, and this is the follow-up that they have put forward. So, Member De Jesus.
So we brought this last month, and we did have a committee that sat together, and it was Fatima, Peter, Elizabeth, Keith, Francis Shea, myself, and Supervisor Maxwell. Oh, I'm sorry, and Manuel. I think so. Oh yeah, that's okay, got it all. So, and so we got together, and some of the things that we looked at. I mean, I'm getting more confused here. Sorry. Some of the things we looked at that were talked to us as well. We wanted some of the things we talked about is the supervisor. Pelosi added their section down here that does not abridge any existing campaign rules, financial rules that folks have to abide by. People ask for consequences. We put consequences in there, and so if it's determined that any of the filed reports are materially false or misleading, we can take action such as put them on probation or decharging them. If there was a finding and we took that out, we just wanted to stay with the confines of we can do. Let's see, there was worry that some smaller clubs don't meet the threshold, don't make this kind of money, or don't make a lot of money, so they can be excluded from this. I'll just send them a letter. One of the things that people wanted, and the focus was this, is to really to identify the donors and the expenditures of the different Democratic clubs, and they have to do that by filing their fair political practices filings and the San Francisco Ethics Commission filings, and so that would disclose it. But for the people who have political action or PAC committee, we did include them. If they make over $25,000, they have to file and they have to identify their top 3 donors. The only amendment we didn't deal with was Supervisor Yee had asked that we include the Democratic Party to also put on their website our expenditures, and we didn't have a problem with that. But when it got down to punishment, this didn't make sense. It was we can't suspend ourselves. I guess we could, but I mean, we wouldn't suspend ourselves or put ourselves out of business. So what I told Supervisor Yee is I would bring that separately next month and just give one for policy and procedures just for the Democrats, the DCCC, to also have transparency and to post. And there are clubs who have sponsored this. I believe the Harvey Milk Club has sponsored it. Your club, the South Beach Democrat. District 6 Democrat. They brought this to us. They sponsored it. Harvey Milk sponsoring it. Gerald Hill sponsoring it. Any other clubs? Those are the 3 that I know of. All right. And so that's it. So we did what you asked. For the majority of the members, this is what we've agreed on, and we brought it forward.
Okay, thank you. Members, is there any discussion? Member Yee.
Just quickly, I do appreciate the work that you did on this resolution, and I'm okay that we will take the matter of our club up in another meeting or
We're not a club.
Committee.
We're a committee.
committee. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Member Shea.
Thank you. Member De Jesus, through the chair, could I just ask a couple of questions? Why was item 9 withdrawn from the agenda?
The committee that we put together and decided that and one of the discussions, if you remember, was this should be in the policy and procedures. I wasn't sure, so I went ahead and made the small one. And if you read the resolution, it says So it's duplicative, it's redundant, we don't need it, because the meat of what we want is in the policy and procedure manual. So I withdrew the bylaws, because all it says is look, see policy and procedure. And I was convinced by the rest of the committee that this is where it should be.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I was not invited to that meeting. I thought I was on that committee. I thought I volunteered for that. Apparently,
I didn't know they
I thought
volunteered.
wrong. But I wish I had been at that meeting because I would have brought up a couple of concerns, but I'm going to bring them up now since we're sitting as a committee of the whole. So obviously, we're all very interested in creating more transparency and more accountability within our club structure. I wanted to ask a couple of questions about certain sections here that I have reviewed. 6.1 talks about club charters requiring to file financial disclosures, et cetera, on the 31st and July 31st and January 31st of each calendar year, but does not take into account any amended reports that happens after those times. Sometimes a committee needs to rush to get their campaign committee filed on those very, very important deadlines, those annual and semi-annuals, and then has to go back because reporting came in late, invoices came in late, contributions can even come in late, and therefore there's no ability to account for what the real picture looks like, because the way section 6.1 is written, we only look at it annual and semi-annual without any of the amendments. So I offer that for you to consider. Secondly, on section 6.2, I'm curious as to what the committee was thinking when they came up with the number of $25,000. Here are my thoughts, and I'll listen to your answer. You know, is this cumulative? Is this annual? Is this quarterly? Does this include in-kind contributions to that committee? And why $25,000? Because if someone wanted to skirt our new policy, they could simply raise or spend $24,999, which is a considerable amount of money, even in today's world, especially if we're talking about a district election. That's a significant amount of money in a district election. So a quick question, and I have a couple more things, but I'd like to know why $25,000.
This is, well, first of all, to your first point, on 6.1, at the end of the last sentence, for semi-annual filings, you can also add including any amendments. If that might take care of that. As to the second one, we were trying to come up with a number. This is the number that collectively that the committee came up with. We didn't want, in a way, we didn't want to nickel and dime, but we also wanted to we wanted to include political action committees, and so we're thinking, you know, that everybody reports. We didn't want to make a hassle, so everybody reports in January and July. We want to catch that, but if the club in the middle, in the quarters are all, in success quarters are raising at least $25,000 in those two different quarters, that comes up to $50,000 and stuff. That's just a number that we decided that was fair, you know, and give us information. You want to add anything to that?
No, obviously the 25,000 is an arbitrary number.
Yes.
The concern, which was the genesis of this resolution, at least in our club, I think it's pretty well known that it was the movement of very large sums of money through the chartered clubs in kind of a dark money laundering kind of fashion. So 25,000 was a number, and it was not agreed on. This was bantered back and forth quite a bit. But it was high enough to leave out the smaller clubs and not burden them so much, but low enough so it would catch these very large, mostly six-digit kinds of operations that you've seen before, and that's pretty much how it arrived.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, I'll go back to say that I think that this does not go far enough to create transparency and accountability with all clubs. I think that we have to be careful not to make this policy, very important policy change, specific to one or two clubs. I mean, we have a few clubs that raise a lot of money. Alice, Milk, UDC, you name them, they raise a lot of money. And then there's a lot of other clubs, and there's about 80 clubs, I believe, that do raise a significant amount of money. And then there's also a lot of clubs that don't, and we know that. But I think if we want to be fair about this, and we want to be transparent and create the accountability we're all seeking, I think we should lower this threshold to $2,000 per quarter, because that's what the FPPC threshold is for a campaign committee. as soon as a campaign committee raises $2,000, you need to file. Okay, so if you want to be in the business of getting elected, be prepared to, start being in compliance with the FPPC. So if the DCCC is really looking to create transparency, I would recommend that we lower this threshold to $2,000. We assist clubs that need the extra assistance. We have lots of people. We have an executive director who can help. We have members of the committee that can also help. There are probably members of these clubs that can help them get into compliance. Again, we're not trying to penalize here. We're trying to create transparency and sunshine. And so what we're doing is we're encouraging clubs to come forward almost in a voluntary capacity to say, okay, this is where we're raising our money. We're showing it on a quarterly or semi-annual basis, and here's where it's coming from. And I don't think that that is too much to do for a club that's probably filing these already, given that $2,000 is the FPPC trigger for filing any type of amendments or compliance.
So the thing is when you file under the Fair Political Practices Commission and the Ethics Commission, you're putting your donors and your expenditures, and that's kind of what we want to make available. And we thought, I remember the dialogue going is that we don't want to burden clubs, and we don't want to burden this committee. We don't want to make the amounts and everything being filed, whatever they're already filing, we're going to clean up and make it transparent.
Yeah.
And we thought at 25,000, people may raise that, and that, we're not talking $1 million, we're talking $25,000. We thought that was a fair sum to trigger a reporting. But I think every time they get a contribution of $2,000 that they have to file something, I think that's burdening them, and I think that was my understanding, is we're gonna make it, all we wanna do is whatever they're getting in those other quarters that aren't being reported until January or July, we wanna make that known. Francis?
So from my point of view, this is a new administrative task for us and for the clubs. I think that's a really interesting idea, but maybe we can pilot it at a certain higher number and look to expand it in the future. But I want to make sure that the mechanism or the administrative function that we set up is correct before we really push it out more broadly. Member Shea, Member Baraka, Member Spear, Member Gupta.
I just wanted to echo what Chair Wu said. I mean, the real intent, and then I think, calling out 6.2, was to sort of uncover and try to bring into light sort of dark money. And the reality is dark money is not happening at the $2,000 level, which is why that threshold exists, that you don't even have to file, with the FPPC if you're under 2,000. I mean, I think that sets that threshold as, that's not what qualifies as dark money. And so it is difficult to find that threshold, and I imagine this number will have to change. And, piloting it at this number, the discussion in the committee was that this was an amount that, based on all of our collective experiences in Democratic clubs and raising money, that would actually kind of get to the issue that we're trying to address, which is the dark money, without overly burdening, the regular club that may not raise at that level. So yes, it is slightly arbitrary, and that can be amended and that can be changed based on kind of running through this and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I agree, maybe that number will, I do think that maybe in time that number will have to come down, but we should pilot it and see it first.
Member Baraka.
Thank you. I wanted to say that I was a member of this committee, although I first want to say that I agree with the whole issue of transparency, and to me, I think it's of the utmost importance. As I mentioned last time, I have Jane Mayer's book, and I really believe that it's important that we shine a light on these types of things. But what I said during the meeting was that I was opposed to the execution of this new policy. I think that we have an opportunity to use what the Ethics Commission already has in terms of the PDF forms that we're expecting to get later on from those same clubs. We're going to take that on, we're going to compile our own set of information and have that available on our page. To me, Why do you need to do that when it's already being handled by an organization and that could be easily linked? Now, the excuse has been, oh, that's so hard. I don't accept that as an excuse because it's not that hard. I mean, I just went onto the website recently and was able to find a lot of information, but it does take searching around, making sure that you have the right links, so forth, so on. So I think that we are taking on a huge burdensome task, talking about overburdening clubs. I think we really should think about the burden that we're putting on ourselves as a club to take in this information, especially when we have an opportunity to use someone else's work that's already been examined, that's already having to be reported to them. Why would we take that new information in? And the last thing I like to say is that I asked during the ad hoc committee that the Ethics Commission be consulted, and I still haven't found out basically what we got from them.
Okay, I think there's a response from Member Efshay and then Member Spear.
So just to respond exactly, and I apologize, I did send this response to Member Gupta, but not to the full ad hoc committee. I did reach out to the Ethics Commission, and they did respond to Member Baraka's question, and I will actually read the response regarding the policy itself. And they said, if the SFDCCC wishes to make it a requirement for chartered Democratic clubs to send electronic copies of their campaign finance statements, then it may. The Ethics Commission does not have the authority to regulate internal policies of this organization as long as they do not contradict or violate the law. So that's their position on, this policy in general. In terms of your question about like making, having an easy way to link, it sounds a little more complicated. I've been going back and forth a little bit. There isn't a direct way to link it because their reports print out by either contributions or expenditures. Their reporting doesn't print out one document. So in terms of like trying to make it easier, we wouldn't make it easier by linking to them. I asked them if there was a way to produce a report that has them both, but they said through their open data, it's just like you have to create these filters and then it'll spit out a report. And it's either contributions or expenditures, not both in one.
But is that form through the chair, is that form like the 570 or 460 or whatever?
It's not a form, it's through the open data, so you can set up, you can create your own filter for specific committees and embed that information, but you'd have to create a filter. So you'd have to like do extra work to.
No, I mean, I guess maybe my question isn't phrased properly. What I'm asking is, since we're requiring them to submit the same forms they submit to the Ethics Commission, correct?
Yes.
Those forms that they submit to the Ethics Commission then are uploaded via PDF or in the PDF format, and then it's posted on that page, correct?
Not exactly,
Why wouldn't it?
because it's through NetFile, so it's not
All of
direct.
my PDFs, all of my forms are filed and available via PDF.
Right, that's true.
The same ones that we're asking them to send to the Ethics Commission, those same forms they're sending to us.
I believe the distinction, I think what you're asking is it automatically posted to a certain page, or do you have to search, right? So my understanding is you go to the Ethics Commission website, you search for someone's name, Cindy
No,
Wu,
no.
and then you get the PDFs.
No, what I'm saying is that when we do submit those forms, we're requiring that they submit those same forms to us, correct? But when we submit those forms to them, those forms that we submit then are available online via PDF format.
Right, I think the issue is there's not a direct link is what they're sounding like, is we have to create a search term and find it. There isn't like a direct link. I asked them if there was a way to create that direct link, and they haven't
Well, that's, I
responded
think,
back
a
yet.
great question for programmers of our site. I think that that's something that could be talked about with regard to our site. I think it would be easier still if that were possible, rather than taking in that extra paperwork for us to process.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. Member Spear.
Can I ask one question, technical question, and one substantive? In section 6.2 on the second line, where it says chartered club receives an excess of 25,000, is that really in excess?
Thank you, that's.
Okay. And then the other question has to go to the last sentence where it says if any donation over 25,000. So are you concerned about a single donation at a single moment in time, or are you concerned about a cumulative series of donations in a reporting period that are over 25,000?
Yeah.
The sense is cumulative, certainly if it's from a single donor.
Okay,
If
so-
there were $5,000 donations.
Yeah, I get the point. Let me just suggest a clarifying amendment, and that would be, if any cumulative donation in a reporting period is over $25,000, and from a single source, that is a PAC, et cetera. Because I think that's what you meant, right? Okay, and can I just ask another naive question, and that is, what's the reporting period? Is it a year? Is it a calendar? Is it a half a year? What are you concerned about? Is it?
It's whatever the.
Okay, so it's a reporting period.
To the ethics commission was.
Okay,
If that's a quarter, then that's the reporting.
okay, so a reporting period is understood by everybody to be a reporting period. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure we got that.
Since we have, what do we address that?
Yeah, this is mostly directed to Keith's point. We talked about how easy it is or is not to get to the data on the Ethics Commission website. And as I recall, Petra's conclusion is we're just gonna have to agree, disagree. I respectfully disagree with you, but regardless of how easy it is or not easy it is to get that, I think it's important for this body, speaking as the president of my club, and that's why we brought it to you folks here, to make its own statement. I think just passing this in any form makes a statement that the DCCC, the San Francisco DCCC, doesn't want dark money passing through its chartered clubs. And that's the statement that's made.
Okay, thank
And
you.
regardless of the mechanics and details. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from a couple more members, Member Gupta, Member Tishay, and then Member Ma.
This is to address Member Tishay's concern by the chair. I just wanted to clarify, there are actually currently 35, not 80 charter clubs, 7 of which are currently listed as inactive because they did not apply for rechartering. So just to clarify the number of charter clubs and the different sizes and things in terms of that.
Thank you.
Member Tishay.
Okay, so, thank you for your patience. I'm not an attorney, and I'm looking at this, trying to understand, and with all due respect to the maker of the, proposer of this, I do think details matter, and I know we're not an ethics commission, and I applaud the subcommittee for doing this work. It's not easy, but I do think we should get it right, because we are gonna put into jeopardy a club's charter. So that could actually affect hundreds of people. It could affect dozens of people in some cases, but hundreds and others on whether or not they get to be a part of our great party. And so I do think details matter, and I think we should take our time to make sure we get them right. So number one, I would like to add an amendment to this, and this is a motion. I would like to include in section 2 that the excess of first of all, I would like to lower that from $25,000 to $2,000, because I'm reading this further. It says that in excess of $25,000 in contributions any calendar quarter. So that means that you can get $24,999 per quarter that you don't have to report. That's $99,996 per calendar year. Okay, what does $100,000 do to a district election over a calendar year? Is that significant or insignificant? And to my eyes and my knowledge of campaigns, it's significant. So why are we excluding significant amounts of money going into district elections? Okay, so I would propose that we lower that threshold to $2,000 per quarter. Okay, this would just follow the FPPC guidelines that these committees are already supposedly filing. Secondly, I would include in-kind contributions, because as we know, in-kind contributions are like money, except they're not money. It's resources, it's office spaces, telephones, it's whatever. So I would add that in as part of the calculation to get to the trigger. I think that these are reasonable amendments. I think it strengthens our resolve. I think it goes towards the maker of the motion's goal to create transparency. I mean, section 6.0 says, in the interest of providing greater transparency for the members of the public, let's give them transparency. We want transparency. So I make that as a motion, and I hope I can get a second and chance to
Second.
discuss it. Thank you.
So I have a point of clarification for Robert's Rules of Order. It's such significantly changing this motion. We're just asking people to upload what they've already filing. This is asking them to actually do filing, a different type of filing system. And I just kind of think that we should change a resolution that drastically.
That's a good question. Yeah, and like if it changes the nature of the document, in this case, the resolution, so drastically, then it should be considered a motion to, sorry, I'm blanking on the term. Substitute. But if it goes so far to like make it entirely, like if the resolution seems entirely different, then I would suggest putting it before the body at a later time, like, because the public would have the use to talk about this thing.
And that's what he's asking, is that filing system up within the CCC and completely, set our own filing system. That wasn't ever what this motion was intended to be. It was just transparency to what they already filed. So that is, I think it's completely changes this resolution. I think it's out of order.
Can I say something very quickly?
Sorry. So I want to confirm first, there's no motion for the basic resolution, right? What I heard was a motion for an amendment with a second.
Yes.
There's a motion to amend what I suggested. I'll restate it for anybody who wants to know.
Okay.
And there's a second.
And so your ask is whether or not it is in essence a substitution.
No, it's changing the whole premise of this motion. You put a filing system in place, and we're just asking them to put a copy of what they already filed. I think it's inconsistent. That amendment is inconsistent, and I would ask that it be ruled out of order.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm not asking for that. I don't know if Petra De Jesus is suggesting that my amendment to the motion is asking to create a filing system. Another member suggested that, and it was never proposed or seconded.
So can
So
you
the-
clarify your amendment?
Yes, the amendment on the floor for me is to change in section 6.2, to strike the amount of $25,000, to lower that to $2,000 to create more transparency and more accountability to support section 6.0's premise, and to add in-kind contributions in addition to cash contributions as part of that calculation. And that would mean that $8,000 per year would trigger a filing, technically.
Okay, let's hear from some other members first. Member Ma and
No.
Member John.
I want to speak on
So,
this.
I have, I think, a couple questions involving section 6.2. I'm a little bit concerned about vagueness and lack of due process in section 6.4. I'm wondering, I'm just curious, when the language, it is determined, who is determining it? You know, in the event any club fails to file any report required by this section, or it is determined that the information in any filed report is materially false. So who will be the determining in this situation?
This body, the same way we determine whether there's a charter or club, the same as the penalty consequences. This body.
Okay, will there be an independent third party that will be consulted, like, you know, looking at numbers and things like that?
We have the ability under our charter, or we have the ability under our bylaws to put on probation or de-charter a club or suspend a club. It would just fall within that little parameters of punishment. It's this body.
Okay, I'd like to clarify that
Probation, de-charterment.
you
We
don't.
have it already in there.
punishing other democratic.
Okay.
I'd
Member
like
Ma
to-
has the floor.
I'd like to clarify that Article 9, Section 8 does not actually empower you to do what you just described, Member De Jesus. So I would object to Section 6.4 as being vague and lacking in authority
to do what it is you're trying to accomplish there, but I feel like this should be sent back to the committee and rewritten, because this is the last one we need to say.
The power to decharter does exist if it comes to this body and the vote threshold is met.
Under certain circumstances, but not leaving here.
I think it's under any circumstance that this body deems appropriate.
I'm reading, I have the bylaws in front of me, and I would just respectfully suggest that section 8, as written, does not empower.
One more time, which article?
As stated in section 6.4, article 9, section 8, go to article 9, section 8. There's only, at page 14. Section 8, suspension or revocation of a charter. Am I in the right place? The SFD CCC may by a 2/3 vote suspend or revoke the charter of any charter club at any time only for the following causes: violation of Article 9, Section 2 of these bylaws, or inactivity.
But you're not amending,
You
you're not
haven't
amending the
done that.
bylaws.
You haven't done
You're
it.
amending a policy and procedure, so you have a conflict. So that's what she's bringing out.
I would just like to suggest that time needs to be spent on that section, so it needs to be sent back to committee so we get this right, because you're actually needing an internal change to effectuate what you want to do here in section 6.4. I just want to get it right.
Yeah, I think that is accurate. So it says that, Member Law just read this, it says that the SFD-CCC may suspend or revoke for 2 causes. One is violation of Article 9, Section 2, which is endorsing a non-Democrat, and the other is inactivity.
Right.
So I do believe it needs to be made consistent.
Thank you, Chair Wood.
So I don't know how you want to go forward. I don't know if that's actually accurate.
I think we go back to committee then. Huh?
There's still a motion on the floor. Point of order.
Okay, let's finish with member discussion, Member Jung, and then Member Shea.
So do I only talk if I'm talking to his amendment, or can I just ask questions in general on this?
To the amendment.
What?
To the amendment.
So, okay, so I actually do want to speak, but not to the amendment. So,
And I already spoke, and it wasn't to the amendment, so I apologize.
so if you want me to speak, I actually do have some
To the
questions.
parliamentarians, do we vote on the amendment without a motion on the overall?
So,
So there is no motion.
point of order. My understanding of Robert's rules is that an amendment has been made and seconded, that members are able to speak to that amendment only. A vote will be taken up or down.
That's right.
Whatever the outcome, we continue the discussion on the main resolution.
That's exactly right.
That's my understanding.
Have we voted to?
Hold on, let's talk first to the parliamentarian, please give her a minute.
Continue the
Yes.
discussion on the first.
You are correct. Like, if there's a motion made and seconded, comments should be directed toward that motion. I feel like sometimes we sway a little bit off of those proceedings. And if that's how the body would like to continue with this particular motion, you guys can do that. I do also hear though that this amendment may be going back to committee. So if you would be open to having your ideas brought forth in that regard, like that's another option you can take as well. Member Shea, who would chair.
Okay, I saw Member Alexander, Member Baraka, and then Member Shea.
There we had John.
Oh, sorry.
I have a question, not an amendment, but on this amendment, if we, so,
I can't hear you, Mary.
Okay.
Do we have a microphone?
Just so you know, I can't hear anybody over there, so, I was
That's
gonna
pretty
ask you
good.
guys some clarifying questions. But, if we're gonna start amending, what's on here, and there's been a suggestion by Ms. Anderson, that we, go back and rewrite some of this stuff and clarify it, it might make more sense just to go back to committee. And, you know, one of my questions that I have, which have nothing to do with, you know, what Member Shea's amendment was, and this is where I'm staying soon, because I couldn't hear what she said. You know, I understand that you said that DCCC was going to be added later, which is really, really good, because I was really concerned when I first saw this, saw that DCCC was not on here. But I want to make sure that, there's a date certain that, the bylaws committee is going to be meeting, and that there's a date certain, well, I mean, we don't have to have the date of that meeting, but that this would definitely be brought back at the April meeting. And if there is a meeting, since Mr. Shea wanted to be on, the bylaws committee and wasn't on the first time, if we could add him on. So I can't hear you, sorry.
Talk loudly.
Why don't I suggest we can say that you would.
Thank you.
And Carrie.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I think that was parliamentarian Lacroix's suggestion also. I would suggest that these issues go to committee, including the bylaws issue in that section, to be worked at committee. This was the ad hoc committee on this resolution, but now there is some bylaws in this.
Can I just add one more thing?
I don't believe so. Nope, no need. Okay, member Jung and member Shea.
Done. So could I just add one more thing? Okay, so I wasn't really done. So what I want to add is that if we are going to, put it back into committee, that we do, bylaws and policies and procedures at the same time, because one doesn't help the other. And a lot of times, and I know this in the past, okay, like way past, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, this body would make changes to one and not make changes to the other. And then I think when Matt Dorsey was on, he chaired a committee where we cleaned up everything. And so it really is helpful to deal with both of them at the same time and as completely as possible and not rush through. The second thing I just wanted to ask is that, and this has to do with what Mr. Brockton was talking about, is that I just looked up on the ethics website the committee reports. I don't know whether, I don't see why we can't just put on the website the link for all these different clubs, because it's all right there. I mean, I called up a club and all the reports were there, then all I had to do was click to the year. And it was a PDF. And so to make it simple, you know, I actually agree with what Keith is saying. The other thing is that, now this does have to go to section 6.2, is that if we're talking about, especially if we're talking about lowering the threshold, the original discussion on this was in terms of making it easy for clubs. Well, the easiest thing is to do what Keith is saying, okay? But the other thing was that we were not including like membership dues. And the whole idea was not to make too much work or you know, on very small transactions. And so I just wanted to point that out, that if we are going to lower to 2,000, you know, we should exclude that, or we should just go and do what Mr. Brock is suggesting. That's all I got.
Member Shea.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I am happy to withdraw my motion if I can get a commitment from the chair that I would be appointed to the committee and that I would get notice and be a part of the committee going forward.
Do I have to withdraw my second?
It is it is an ad hoc committee. Your name is added to the list of people on the committee.
Thank you, Chair. I withdraw my amendment.
Eric Marr would like to be put on this committee.
And member Marr. I will say we had a hard time convening the committee last time, so just to be clear that this is hard work from a number of folks that have volunteered.
Thank you, Chair.
I did like the phone aspect, the group conference call. That was great.
Worked better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I believe then we are on item number 11. This resolution is to protect our democracy with public source voting systems. The agenda says it needs a 2/3 vote. It needs